Senator Lee for your opening statement.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to each of you for being here and agreeing to testify in front of this hearing. Violent crime is on the rise in communities all across our great country. Suicides and other deaths of despair are themselves at record highs. Homicides are climbing again, and meanwhile, police officers are retiring at unprecedented rates. Meanwhile, mass public shootings in Uvalde, Texas, and Highland Park, Illinois, have renewed the national conversation about how we can stop the evil perpetrated in these horrific events. Mass shooters who carry out highly visible acts of violence are fueled by an evil desire to inflict on others the extreme despair and isolation that they suffer themselves. It's our collective responsibility to understand why deadly violence is increasing and how best to address its root causes. Research from my staff on the Joint Economic Committee shows that most mass public shooters are suicidal, and they're less likely to have significant connections to family or to other people at work. They tend to live in communities where violence is concentrated and where their support systems have, for one reason or another, unraveled. Similar trends are true for the less talked about but more prevalent violence that's reflected in the 29% increase in the homicide rate in 2020 and the decades-long rise in suicide and other deaths of despair. These findings on the role of supportive families and communities suggest that the circumstances that lead to violence go far beyond the simple presence of a firearm. Nonetheless, every time a horrific event occurs, like the shootings in Uvalde and Highland Park, for example, we immediately hear demands from the same one-size-fits-all gun control mandates from Washington that many have pushed for many decades. And yet policies to stop violent crime must be faithful to the Constitution and must not inadvertently harm the very citizens we're trying to protect, especially those who are law-abiding. At its core, the Second Amendment guarantees the right to keep and bear arms, to defend one's family and community. My staff estimates that defensive gun use helped avoid more than $120 billion in crime last year alone. Limiting our fundamental rights under the Second Amendment makes us less secure, not more. Addressing our violence epidemic will not be achieved through top-down rules from Washington, but with the much harder work of reversing the decline in social capital in communities across America. We should look to community-led solutions focused on cultivating stable two-parent families, strengthening employment opportunities, boosting institutional trust, enforcing laws that are already on the books, and supporting local programs that help those at highest risk for violence. While far more daunting than proposals to simply restrict access to firearms, these solutions would be far more effective at preventing violence and providing support to struggling individuals in our communities. The decades-long decline in violent crime has ended. Deaths of despair are increasing, and mass public shootings continue to scar our communities. Understanding the causes of increased violence is more urgent than ever. I hope that our conversation today considers how we might alleviate the childhood trauma, isolation, lack of stable employment, and low levels of community trust that contribute to increased acts of violence. Family and civil society breakdown come with dangerous consequences. Confronting the underlying causes of violent crime must play a key role in our efforts to keep American communities safe and prosperous. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, thank you very much. Now we'll begin our round of questioning. Let me begin. Ms. Bird